Well, and for more, I'm joined by Joachim Ragnitz from the IFO Institute for Economic Research in Dresden. What are your expectations from this new coalition?
Well, I suppose that people will see that reality is not the things that they promised in the election campaign. So I think most of the promises they made will not be fulfilled.
Well, let's pick one promise in particular, tax reduction. Both the CDU-CSU and the Liberal Free Democrats promised in their campaigns that they would reduce taxes. They didn't give an exact time plan yet, but what do you think? Will it be possible? And if so, to what extent?
It will be rather difficult because they do not want to increase debt, that is no deficits, okay, and they do not want to lower expenditures. So I do not see how to lower taxes then, and I suppose maybe in the long run, but not in the next year or so.
But of course, one of the main reasons why both parties said they have to do something about the tax system and reduce taxes was that it should be an incentive for businesses to produce more, to invest more, and in return, tax revenue would eventually increase, which would help us to get out of the crisis. If that is not an immediate measure, what else could they do?
Well, first, that is a story of the Laffer curve that Ronald Reagan in the 1980s tried, and he was not very successful because the deficit of the United States increased very much. So it was a problem.
The economy didn't work over there.
So I don't think that that policy has much possibilities to increase growth in Germany. Most of the cyclical developments, most of growth come from the foreign economy, that is from abroad. We can work with tax reduction or incentives for research and development, for example.
But that is long-term measures, of course.
But in the short run, we will not succeed anyway, I think.
Okay. Joachim Ragnitz, thank you for the moment. We'll continue to talk a bit about this. Meanwhile, for those living in former communist Eastern Germany, change has almost become normality since the fall of the Berlin Wall 20 years ago. The transition from a command to a market economy has been more complex and has taken longer than many expected. But there are some real success stories here, which we want to present in our new series, Changing Regions, Better Days in Eastern Germany. Part 1 takes us to Ludwigsfelde, a small town of 24,000 people southwest of Berlin in the state of Brandenburg. More than 1,000 companies operate in Ludwigsfelde. It's long been a center for automobile and aerospace technology in the days of East Germany and still today.
Trucks are Uwe Bertalot's passion. This is his club's workshop. The club members are all fans of technology. They meet up every Monday.
So, runter, Vorsicht.
In their free time, they've welded together and restored a total of 30 vehicles.
We look for models missing from our collection. We found several. One of them, interestingly enough, in Russia. My colleagues who used to develop prototypes are working on it now. The funny thing is that these are people who built the truck nearly 30 years ago, and now they're restoring it.
Their L60 is a rare prototype that never went into serial production. All the vehicles here were built in Ludwigsfelde before the fall of communism. Rolf Dietrich was born on November 9, 1989, the day the Berlin Wall fell. He turns 20 this year and, just like the older club members, is a great fan of technology.
I started out tinkering with bicycles and mopeds, and now cars. My training has intensified that interest. I've always been interested in mechanics, how cars are built, why they work, and what engines look like from the inside.
On his way to work, Uwe Bertalot drives through the grounds of what was once the state-owned IFA automobile factory in Ludwigsfelde. 10,000 people used to work here. Nowadays, the grounds and buildings are used by new companies, attracted by subsidies and 30% tax breaks. Bertalot works for the largest company, Mercedes-Benz. Trucks used to run off the assembly lines here. Now it's vans. Bertalot plans assembly facilities. He was here in 1991 when Daimler took over operations.
The attraction was our truck division with its huge export orientation. 70 to 80% of our vehicles went abroad, mainly to Eastern Bloc countries. They wanted to continue serving that market.
The Ludwigsfelde workers' know-how was in demand. Only well-trained, skilled laborers manned the assembly lines. These photos were taken around the time when the wall fell. Back then, the employees wanted to make their factory attractive to Daimler, so they spruced up the paint shop.
When I started in 1988, it was a dark and dingy place. And here you can see how it was painted back then. Production of the L60 stopped in September 1990. Because of the planned economy, the paint had been ordered at the beginning of the year, so there were huge amounts of this green vehicle paint left over. So we painted the paint shop with it, including the walls. It was an attempt to spruce up the factory.
So haben wir das Werk versucht, schön zu machen.
Ludwigsfelde itself was never really known for its natural beauty. These days, Uwe Bertalot owns a small house. Before the collapse of communism, he lived in this prefab apartment block. It was built as a quick solution to provide housing for the growing workforce as the factory expanded rapidly during the 1970s. A motorway runs right through the town. Nowadays, that's an advantage for about 1,000 large and small businesses. Bertalot tells us there was a great deal of investment here after the Berlin Wall fell, and with 10% unemployment, Ludwigsfelde is actually doing much better than many places in the former East Germany. Sometimes, Bertalot visits the town's small museum of technology. It displays typical products of the planned economy and its demise. When the state-run companies collapsed, 6,000 local residents lost their jobs.
You have to remember that in the fall of 1989, people took to the streets, and in the summer of 1990, the first people lost their jobs. Of course, none of us wanted that.
Rolf Dietrich, born the year the wall fell, works a few hundred meters away at MTU maintenance. Aircraft engines were inspected and serviced during the communist era, back then as a state-run operation. In the future, MTU will also be making engines, with a long-term order from Airbus playing a big part. Dietrich will be staying with the company. He's finished his training as a mechanic. Now he's going to train as an inspector. Professionally, Ludwigsfelde has a lot to offer him. The only disadvantage is there is not much to do in the evenings after work. Dietrich and his girlfriend have nowhere to go. The local cinema has been closed for years. There are no pubs or cafes that cater for young people. So they often go to Berlin, some 20 kilometers away.
I would be willing to leave. MTU isn't just in Ludwigsfelde. It has branches in Munich, Hanover, Shanghai, and now in Poland. I'd certainly consider looking around to see how it is elsewhere. I'm not tied to Ludwigsfelde.
But for the time being, they're planning Dietrich's birthday on November 9th.
And November 9th is, of course, a historic date for Germany. And this year is the day Chancellor Angela Merkel will present her new government. Now let's go back to Joachim Ragnitz of the IFO Institute in Dresden. And Dresden, of course, is in eastern Germany. What was the mood like there the day after the election?
Well, some people are glad with the result because they voted for the CDU, especially in Saxony, which is
pretty much dominated.
Yes, by the CDU. But on the other hand, there are many people, about 30%, voted for the left-wing party, and these are, of course, disappointed with the election results here.
So how can this new coalition win them back? What challenges do they face, especially in Eastern Germany?
Well, the main challenge is, of course, on the economic side, because we have to need more. We need more growth to have a equalization of living standards between East Germany and West Germany. The difference is about 30% now, and also unemployment is
very high.
Is higher, doubled as high as in West Germany. So these are the problems that the new government have to face.
Now, in the last 20 years, a lot of money has been pumped into Eastern Germany. I believe some 1.5 trillion euros. That money aimed, obviously, at reaching this equilibrium and getting the same standard of living for both sides within Germany. But it hasn't quite helped. Instead, we have high unemployment. The figure is 12.8%, which is about 3% higher than in West Germany. We also have some 3.6 million people who left Eastern Germany, moved into the West because there they could get better jobs, better pay. What went wrong? Did all that money go down the drain?
Well, you have to see that about half of this money was spent for social benefits, social transfers. And this, of course, does not help with growth, because we need more investment. But it's rather difficult to have this in the system that we have here in all over Germany. I think there is one special task for the new government, that they have to boost investment in East Germany. That is investment also not only in streets and mainly in streets, but also in the education system, and also in research and development. That's a thing that we have to do there.
So there's still a lot of work to do. Joachim Ragnitz, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.